We have a quorum tonight. 5 of our 7 members of the planning board are here. We're all participating in person. We have 3 hearings on our agenda tonight. There's a 7 p.m. site plan amendment application by Peter Kelly, 503 North Farms Road. At 7:20, we have a special permit with site plan for a 39-unit open space residential cluster development by Sovereign Builders at Glendale Road, Florence. Map IDs 48-020, -021, -024, and 49-008. At 8:30 p.m., we have a continuation from December 11th and January 22nd on a request for site plan by Lewis Builders for 3 new detached units and site changes at 52 Woodbine Ave, Northampton, map ID 25A-149. We always open our meetings with public comment for any items not on the evening's agenda, so none of the items I just listed. So if anybody in council chambers would like to come to the podium, now's the time for general public comment. And I'd make the same invitation to folks on Zoom. So anyone who would like to comment, make a general public comment, please use the raise hand function or turn your video on and give us a wave. And we would be glad to hear from you. Okay, seeing none. Our first hearing, the site plan amendment application by Peter Kelly at 503 North Farms Road. The applicant, it's my understanding the applicant's asked to withdraw this application. It was advertised only once on January 29th. Carolyn?
Correct. So the application came in, we realized after we advertised that there was a non-compliant issue with the submittal that we just hadn't caught before, so it couldn't move forward. But the applicant will be able to actually do a project elsewhere on the parcel that won't trigger planning board review. So you all, because it was advertised, have to vote on the withdrawal.
Did we ever see the initial?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it didn't even get to that point. So it was before, so what happens is applications get submitted, they're advertised 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks, and then it comes to the board. So last week would have been the second week. We withdrew it before that advertising, so it wasn't advertised last week. But it's still, because it was advertised the first week, you all officially have to move and approve a withdrawal. Yep.
I make a motion to withdraw previously stated project.
Okay, a motion's been made to withdraw the site plan amendment application at 503 North Farms Road.
Second.
And a second. So can I see a show of hands for the withdrawal? Okay, it passes unanimously. So the next hearing is scheduled for 7:20. We actually have 12 minutes to kill before we can start that hearing. So I think we have some minutes to approve.
Yes.
From January 8th
January meeting.
and January 22nd. Is that correct? Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes? And does anyone have any edits or modifications they would like to incorporate?
No, I reviewed the minutes of the 8th and January 22nd, and I'll move to approve them.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Sam seconds. Show of hands. And unanimous, I think. Great. Carolyn, do we have anything else? Any A&Rs or other business we could look at?
We do not have any A&Rs for review for tonight's meeting. The only other, there's some late breaking information about just updates. So the city received through Department of Public Works, applied for Mass Trails grant funding to replace the decking on all the bike path bridges. That work, the DPW was successful in getting that grant. They've hired a contractor and work is anticipated to begin in 6-ish weeks. So we'll be sending out notice through typical channels. But since we had this time, I thought I would announce it. So there's going to be various closures whenever they get to, the bridges that.
What section of trail will be?
So the downtown bridge is definitely one. Hang on just a second. Let me pull them all up so I don't.
The one over Bridge Street,
Main Street.
Main Street,
Yeah.
whatever it is called there.
Yes, exactly.
The one over, opposite Dunkin' Donuts, which is North Street. Yeah.
Let's just stop traffic by putting something, like a big semi, stick one underneath it.
Yeah, that way they could climb up to it.
Yeah.
And just jam it right in there.
But the most hit bridge in the US.
How long does it take to do? a full bridge?
I don't know. I mean, they're just sort of, my lay understanding is they're just gonna pull up the planks and put new planks down. So, yeah, and there's actually a planned detour route, so it's gonna be the Main Street Bridge, the North Street Bridge, in Leeds,
Good.
the Look Park Bridge.
How about the one happening?
That's DCR. That's not us. That was actually just done recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was redone, right? Like, yeah. But that is owned by the state. That's not a city bridge. So that's one,
That's great news.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bridges.
Yep.
Yeah. What?
Ooh,
Well, that's good news. I'm sure the Friends of Northampton Trails will help you kind of get the word out about the closures
Yeah.
so that people don't get too upset on the inconvenience.
Yeah, and as we get, like I said, as we get closer and we have a more firm date, we'll make sure to push that out too. Let's see, anything else? of Fun stuff.
The approval of the trail in Fitzgerald Lake Conservation Area from Cook
Yeah.
Avenue is an exciting project.
Yes.
That's got a bunch of funding and, well, I'll let you talk about it.
Sure. So that's another section of trail that's going to be closed for a period of time this spring. We have a contract. In fact, Sarah's in my office is just finishing up the contract language for the contractor. So there were several bids awarded in the last month, or several RFPs that came back in the last several weeks. One of them was the that section from Cook Avenue to the marsh. Essentially, the plan is to make that a fully soft surface accessible trail. So there's be accessible parking at the parking lot, and then but that trail work will start when the contractor is ready, but it'll be this spring, sort of maybe as snow melts and weather permits. So there's that. Also, we just received bids for the Old Wilson Road culvert removal and pedestrian bridge to cross that stream. The contract is going out soon for that. So that will entail creation of a turnaround, sort of like a 2-spot turnaround on the Old Wilson Road approach from Rocky Hill Road, and then a larger parking lot, I think 11 spaces on the westerly end of Old Wilson Road.
Great.
And ultimately, there's a whole ecological restoration process that'll go in off-road, which we're waiting to hear back on funding, but that can be wrapped into this contractor. So the contractor will start on the road part and then hopefully move into the conservation area. And that will be also an accessible soft surface trail that will loop from that parking lot to through the conservation area. So. And that's it.
Where's the cook one? Where's housing?
Right. So when you enter the parking lot for the Broad Fitzgerald Lake or Broadbrook Conservation Area, and you park and you start walking towards the housing is on the left. The trail is right at the trailhead there. It starts from the edge of the parking lot and goes in. There's public parking.
I remember the housing there.
Yeah, the parking lot is finished, complete. That will remain. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's done. So, yep.
That's all good news. And the spur, the little bike path spur heading up to Route 66 from the existing trail in East Hampton, that's probably stalled with that 18 inches of snow.
Yes.
Yes.
But right, as soon as, they're able, they'll pick back up in the spring. And that should be done midsummer, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
A big celebration.
Yep.
I guess while we have 4 more minutes to talk, I heard there's like a sustainability committee or something, and that Ben Wheel had made a presentation about geothermal at the high school. And I was just curious if that had been recorded, or if there's a way to like see what he had presented in that meeting.
So there was a presentation, and I don't know if it was the environmental club at the high school. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about a city? Because there's
Isn't there like a city sustainability
Energy and
committee?
Sustainability Commission. There are recordings, but there wasn't a recent presentation of the whole thing. I mean, he did present to city council.
Was it city council?
Yeah.
Out the high school.
Yes. So,
Out the high school.
Okay.
right.
So I'll look there for it.
Yeah,
Which meeting it was?
probably second meeting in January, I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for the high school building. I'm just curious about it.
Transition the high school to all electric geothermal heating and cooling.
So surprised that, you know, I think it's somehow, like, they just really don't.
Can
have
you switch them off with that in
Do you know which one it is?
lower.
gallery?
Lower.
or something?
It's on gallery. I mean, I can make it small. Well,
Below what's.
Yeah, well then, soon enough they'll.
yeah, that didn't work.
It seems more sustainable,
Is that?
Yeah, well,
you know.
it might be something you want to use with like a radiant floor system or something, not like a ducted air system.
Yeah, put a- No electric heat pump that can keep up with the.
If it's geothermal, it can. Hmm.
But that of all the things like fried that there's just they don't make it electric, they don't make it hot water. I mean, it's like when you're keeping it at 140 degrees sort of constantly, efficiencies are there.
Oh, I thought with the radiant floor, you'd need like 90 degrees.
Whatever the thing, like more than electric. I mean,
An air source electric. Are you talking about ground source?
No, I'm talking ground source. I
like if
thought
you
we'd be able to do it.
You have radiant floor system.
Uh-huh.
Everyone, if you care, there's not a electric heat pump water heater that can make it an effective source of heating. I was surprised. I mean, part of it is these, like the larger pump, heat pump water heaters, electric water heaters, big things require like 300 amp servers. You know,
Yeah, there's definitely a large electrical
yeah. I mean,
draw,
now it's
but
like
we've,
my electrician's like, no, you not like you're like, I'm gonna put on my dishwasher and it's like I'm gonna run everything at the same time. Like that's happening in reality.
okay. Hey, we've made it to 7:20. So back to our regularly scheduled program here. Our next hearing scheduled for 7:20 is a special permit with site plan for a 39-unit open space residential cluster development by Sovereign Builders at Glendale Road, Florence. The special permit for open space cluster requires a supermajority vote of 5 of the 7 planning board members. The board must determine that the cluster requirements have been met and that this is an appropriate location for an open space residential cluster. The site plan review requires a simple majority, 4 of 7 members. This is a technical permit. The board will determine that the standards for site plan approval can be met. Since this hearing appears to have a lot of interest, we're going to set a time limit of 3 minutes for public comment when we get to that point. The board has received and reviewed written comments on the record, so interested parties do not need to reiterate what was submitted in writing, although they're certainly welcome to. Do we have a presentation from the applicant? You have a green light there?
Hello. Great. How you doing?
Great.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Rob Levesque from our Levesque Associates. I apologize ahead of time for my voice, a little scratchy tonight. But if it pleases the board, what I'd like to do is make a presentation, and there are obviously a number of comments and documents that we'd be happy to go through with the board. So I'll make my presentation, and then I'll ask you for the next steps you'd like to see.
Great.
Perfect. Okay, so again, we're here for Sovereign Place condominiums. This is a proposal for work off of Glendale Road. Can I share my screen? Oops. Sorry. I should be sharing my screen, right? For the people at home.
Yeah.
Says I'm 7%. I don't know if it's trying to restart the computer.
Oh, what does it say?
It says you're 18, 20% there. I don't know if it's doing an update or something. Story of my life.
The 7:20 p.m. update.
And the folks on the, can they,
See you on?
okay. So I'd be happy to work with this and then work my way back.
Back on and, what percentage are you?
30%.
I mean, whatever the board wants to do, but it'll pop back on and then you can.
Okay. Okay. So if it pleases the board, I'll go to the,
Well, yeah, we kind of want you near the microphone though.
okay.
Maybe
I can
just
do- I can
talk
do
to
that.
the plan.
Sure. Yeah, so if I can see over there. Thank you. So to my left is our overall site plan. As you can see, we have an access road off of Glendale Road. Internal on-site driveway. We're accommodating 39 residential units. There's 2 different styles of units. We have architecturals for those units that have been provided, and we can share those with you further. The idea is that these would be condominiums, owner occupied. There is a couple key components to the plan. We have the central open space within the center of the project. The project site is just a portion of the overall land. With your package, we have an overall calculation for open space. We've calculated that in concert with the planning department. I think it's about 79 acres, 70 some odd acres of land altogether. And obviously we're just working on a portion of that. So the different green colors you see, there's a lighter green, which would represent lawn and kind of open space. There's some darker green colors that would represent, generally speaking.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Here, want to switch? Okay. So that would represent the darker green areas would represent vegetation, existing vegetation or proposed. We have a full landscape plan that's been provided. We have some substitutions on some of the plants that we've worked through. The oval shaped, some of those oval shaped kind of sea green color represent bioretention basins. We have 3 bioretention basins that are handling our stormwater. We worked with Doug McDonald with regard to the low impact development nature of the stormwater. As of today, I believe in the afternoon, we received approval from DPW on the stormwater permit. We've also had a peer review, I believe by McClure Engineering, that had a couple items that we would be happy to discuss at the appropriate time. And we've also provided with our application a traffic study conducted by Bowman Associates, as well as a supplemental site distance analysis that shows, just so you can see it on from a graphic standpoint, both vertically and horizontally, you can see the overall layout of Glendale Road and how that site distance works. Just to clarify on that graphic, the site distance shown on the graphic is the minimum required. The Bowman Associates report shows that there is more than that, ample. There's also some crash data on the Bowman report. Specifically, I believe there's 2 crashes that were during the time period that was reviewed, 2 crashes, pretty straightforward, and they are described in nature in that report. So should you have any questions, we could go through that as well. There's about 500 vehicle trips per day, roughly. That's in the Bowman report as well. The peak hour trips are pretty minimal, as you can imagine, and those are defined and laid out in the report itself. We did receive and review some comments related to the structural components of, I guess I would say, potential impacts, which we've reviewed and respect those questions and concerns. So we'd be happy to, through the chair, at the appropriate time, kind of address the construction-related aspects of the project as well. I'll stop there if it's okay and ask the chair how you'd like me to proceed from here. And knowing that I'm not real live with the graphic, I don't know if you want me to wait.
Yeah. What's our status on the computer there, Carolyn?
It says it was restarting and it's spinning. I've been-
That's why I always bring hard copies.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I would like, for the benefit of our folks in Zoom land, to be able to see.
And what
While we talk
through
through
the
it.
chair, what I can certainly do is maybe just go back through the key components of the plan so that the folks at home can see that as well. I could do that briefly. Sorry, I don't know what.
No, it's a weekly update
Oh,
that
oh.
happens, and so it happens on Wednesdays, so if the
Oh,
computers have
really?
been used, then
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, so you have to log into Zoom again? Oh, boy.
So for the folks on Zoom, we're just taking a brief moment to see if we can catch up with our technology here.
Thank you. It says to join. You want me to hit join?
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't want to hit the wrong button. It says join. I'm going to go ahead and join.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there you
All right.
go.
Okay. And then I will share.
Yep.
And okay. Share. Wonders never cease. Okay. So for the folks at home and through the chair, if it's okay,
Yeah.
go ahead and just
Yeah,
describe
please.
the plan again. So can everybody see my cursor on their screens? Okay. So Glendale Road is on the right side of our plan. Our plan is oriented due north is the top of the page. So Glendale Road, a proposed access road to the 39 units. I'm kind of going around the loop of the proposed roadway. Topography in general is kind of sloping up and down, an old gravel operation, and kind of the remaining contouring of the land. There is a significant, and I think this is notable for the purposes of discussing some of the concerns from the abutters. There is a pretty significant topographic change on what I would call the southwest side of the property. Other than that, it's generally sloping kind of up into the site towards the back. There are some wetland resource areas that were delineated by David Cameron, a local wetland scientist. Those determinations have all been made through the Conservation Commission. We are, again, utilizing approximately, well, we'll say a very small portion of the property. I can get into the details. I think it was about 20, just under 25 acres of land being utilized for the project, with a total being pretty significant, almost 3 times that. To what I had discussed before, we are 39 units located off of this proposed roadway. We have a series of stormwater basins that meet the DEP stormwater management standards, as well as considerations for low impact development, including rain gardens and bioretention basins, which we have 3. So there's Basin 1, which is located in the southeast corner, Basin 2, which is just up from that, and then Basin 3. I'd be happy to go through the details of the treatment train and the drainage conveyance system, but generally speaking, there's a topographic point on our new roadway approximately here that breaks the water and runs a portion to Basin 2, and breaks the water and runs the remaining portion to Basin 3. There is an area off-site to the north of this portion of the property that is picked up and conveyed into Basin 1. I had discussed some of the traffic information, so I won't get back into that because it's not real plan related. I certainly have a full set of detailed sheets that we can go through if there's any details about the specifics. But again, we have been reviewed by a peer reviewer, McClure Engineering, and we have also received the stormwater permit associated with the project from DPW. So I'd be happy to turn it back to the chair at that time.
Great, thank you very much. So Carolyn, I'm gonna ask you a question first and foremost. McClure was a peer reviewer who reviewed this work. We don't generally have that happen very often, but it seems to me like we would want their comments addressed and to get a clean bill of health from them to the board before we can approve this project.
So the third-party review is sort of a stopgap measure that we have while we don't have an in-house engineer, and we're still looking for that person. What's typical is we get comments from DPW, and then if there are conditions that can be addressed, then the board can close the hearing and address those conditions. I think there are, first of all, let me clarify that the comments from McClure, I think, related to the zoning and sort of subdivision regulations were not accurate. They don't really understand interpretation of the local zoning review. So there are several of those comments that really are sort of should be taken off the table. Were issues related to site distance and road access and intersection level of service that could be that, and I've talked to the Department of Public Works, the applicant's required to do traffic mitigation as part of the zoning requires that. And so as part of that mitigation, the further study, which could be post-permit or should be post-permit because it would be part of the traffic mitigation, could be conditioned and implemented. So that shouldn't hold up, issuing a permit. There's some issues related to water and fire flows that maybe if the applicant has addressed those comments because the applicant has seen them, could be either conditioned or you could hear how the applicant was going to address those. But, the issue of fire flow could be addressed with, it's my understanding, fire suppression systems. Or there may be a need to shift some units, which I think you would want to see revised plans, but you could ask the applicant about those. But those are sort of the three areas, I think. So primarily, I think it would be possible to issue a conditional permit without having to wait for McClure to come back and those, because those are just their comments to DPW. DPW has engineering on staff. They just don't have the capacity to review all of this stuff. So
Yes.
So just to be clear, the third party reviewed all aspects of the project?
they, in this case, they did, even though their charge is really only to look at the utilities.
Okay.
And traffic and water and sewer and drainage. Yeah.
And you covered a lot just then, but you conclude by saying those three, please.
Meaning that the area, so road and traffic safety, water and fire flows.
Thank you.
And the zoning and subdivision comments that they had were inaccurate, so I would not worry about those.
Right.
Well, that was the third thing.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And those are points 3, 6, and 7 from their report.
Yes. Let me just pull that up.
Mr. Chairman, if it's
Yes.
possible. So if it pleases the board, I could speak to that, at least generally. So we have received the comments, we reviewed them. There were some comments that were arguably stricken from the report, from McClure Engineering. The other items generally, appeared to us as housekeeping items. The items related to water and also to sewer arguably have been addressed. So we have a sewer letter from the city of East Hampton that addresses their ability to provide sewer and the agreement to provide sewer. We also have a Tata and Howard, is the name of the company, report related to water. So to your planner's comment, there's a separation, depending on the separation of the frontage provided for each of the units. There can or could be the requirement for fire suppression related to the buildings themselves. Based on our review and our calculations of the frontage, we don't anticipate that will be required. If it would be required, some shifting, as mentioned, of the units could be done. But at this point, we believe that we will not need to do that. So we believe that we're in good stead with both of those, related comments. The other comment related to adding some additional information, one of them was the site distance sketch, which we've provided this afternoon, which further supports the site distance information from Bowman Associates that was provided in their report. So we do believe that generally things have been revised and accommodated and answered. However, any remaining items we would be certainly happy to address through a condition, as well as some of the traffic mitigation that your planner has discussed. So we understand that and do not have a problem with that.
I haven't been able to locate the Tata and Howard letter in the file. I did see the McClure statement, though, where the fire flows are required fire flows are predicated on the frontage. And since this is a cluster development, the frontage doesn't really correspond to how many units are on site.
If I could,
Yeah, please.
add to that, Todd Solera, Sovereign Builders. So the report from Tata and Howard said that we have available 750 gallons per minute. That's the maximum available to the site for water flow. And if the houses are 70 to 99 feet separation, if this basically the frontage is 70 to 99 feet, that's the amount of flow that would be required for their separation. Some of ours have what would be considered, although it's not frontage because they're condominiums. But if you draw a line on as it would be frontage for the separation of units, you have in some cases 68 feet. So we fall below the 70 so we don't have the required fire flow for hydrant fire protection. So the alternative, and this, I've talked to Keith Snape from the water department, is to add residential sprinklers in the units that fall below 70 feet of theoretical frontage. So there, that's the solution, which we're very willing to do, is to add residential sprinklers to, most of them are 85 or 90 feet. And so the concern is the proximity of each house to the other.
Right.
And so that fire catches from one to the other, and obviously you need more fire flow, gallons per minute to address that situation.
Right.
So the other question was about sewer, to sort of go on to that a little bit. We have a letter from East Hampton, but in the letter, it doesn't state, so one of the requirements of the engineering firm was they wanted clarity on the quantity of effluent that East Hampton would accept. The letter doesn't state that quantity, which we can get. They were, what we submitted to them, the gallons that we would produce, so, which was a volume much greater than would ever be. It's based on Title V and 110 gallons per bedroom per day, which assumes that all houses have 3 bedrooms occupied and are being used at once. That was the flow that was submitted to East Hampton, and they're, you know, so they've all along knew that it was 39 units. Their letter doesn't state that number of units. We're happy to address that, and they will, you know, put that in a further, in another letter, clarifying that they're clear on how much they'll accept in terms of effluent.
And
And-
with your discussions with the Northampton Water Department, it sounds, or did you talk about, could they report your usage to East Hampton, so East
We
Hampton can
did.
charge you?
Exactly, and that was agreed with Donna at DPW. There's an agreement that they would report the water usage, which would
To East
then,
Hampton?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Carolyn?
determine-
Yeah, so I would just say, so as when you all review any project, the fine details of compliance with, you know, fire flows and water and sewer are really under DPW regulatory jurisdiction. So what you'd want, if there were a problem and that we couldn't get anywhere close to fire flows, then that would be an issue, I would think, for a project of this size. However, before a project ever gets off the ground, the applicant has to go to the building department for a building permit. But before that person can pull a building permit, they need to show proof that there's water availability and sewer availability. And so if they can't show that at that time, then they're not going to get a permit. So that is, you know, whether you deny this or approve it, they would, you know, they'd still need to have that and show the detailed analysis for the community from which they're drawing water or they're discharging sewage.
Add to that a little bit, the report that we submitted from Tata and Howard, that's the firm that the city uses. And so I paid a fee to the water department to have the city use Tata and Howard, who has their water system modeled, so that the results are based on Northampton's water system, because that's the firm that the city uses for modeling of all of their water system.
I think one other thing I'd like to talk about before I turn it over to the public, can we just discuss this proposed trail by others? I don't quite understand the genesis of
Sure.
of all of that.
So the trail system, there are many trails throughout the property. And so the total acreage is 79 acres. We're developing 25 acres of that. The project where the houses will be is 25 acres. So the balance of the property is to be donated to the city. There are many natural trails that are there now. We need to locate a trail system in a parking area, which Carolyn and I have discussed a best location for that, and we've decided a good location for it to access all of the open space. The trails by others is, you know,
Can you pull up that plan? There's like a red
Yeah.
trail that in your package there somewhere. I could probably
Yeah,
tell you what page.
So
it's
if
on.
it's, I don't know if the folks at home can see this. I want to make sure I get the right plan to show you.
Yeah, it's
So this plan has it well defined. So,
drawing C12.
thank you.
Where did that come
Okay.
There you go. So it's all in red there.
So this plan was part of the original submission. And what we were looking at was, and if you can see that, we were looking at a trail system that would originate from the northern portion, the northern access along the frontage of Glendale. I think and I don't want to speak out of school, but I believe in concert with the planner, a potential improvement to that access was proposed. So on the plans that you see before you, including this color plan, which unfortunately doesn't open on this computer, you'll see and I'll
So parking for this trail system was very difficult and in a bad location, not safe. And also the amount of trees that would need to be removed for that trail system was extensive. So we looked at another location for parking within the project, which is much less, much safer and much less tree removal and a shorter distance to get to the other trails which exist on the property that the city would own in the process of this.
So for the folks at home and for the board, the updated plan shows a parking area approximately here, just to the south of our roadway where we have a little open space to do so. And then we would have an access that would come around and then tie in. We have an existing crossing that will be utilized for our sewer connection over to East Hampton. So we're going to kind of piggyback on that existing crossing so we don't have any resource area impacts there. And that kind of gets you to the other portion of the property. So I'm going to explain what I'm going to call out. So I'll show the parking area, and then I will show the dashed line representing the first portion of the access to the other part. So parking here, and then this dashed line that you see is at least the rerouted contemplated trail, obviously to be worked out in concert with whatever conditions the frontage sides are logical to make sure that it's effective in the property.
Carolyn, who is gonna install this trail? Is this something the city does?
Yeah, so it's a little confusing because the original plan showed trail by others from the parking lot. That was that strip along the northern edge originally was envisioned as being open space, and that by others meant in the future, potentially the city. The special permit cluster requires that there is an access for all the people within the proposed project area to access the public open space that's being proposed, or the open space. And in this case, the applicant is offering to dedicate it to the city. So that requirement means that the applicant has to build a trail for the residents to access the public open space. Because there was also originally this offer of parking, the applicant is offering to propose a small, 3-space parking area or something with a public access easement that allow the public to also go on the trail that is required to be built by the applicant in order to serve that 10.5 special permit cluster requirement that creates connectivity for everyone in the project. So that trail is required to be built, and what hasn't been identified as the best location to have the least impact on tree clearing, but also give enough buffer to those units that are proposed.
Right, so
And
how
that
do
would
we,
have
how do
to
we
be-
condition something like that? Just
Some-
that they would work with,
Staff to
Department staff.
field verify the location for a specific width trail, 4-foot wide trail that connects to the public open space. You'd also need a condition for the public access easement from that parking area, well, including the parking area and that segment before it gets to the land that's offered to be dedicated to the city. You can look at the plan. I don't want to make that judgment for you. But You can ask the applicant too to show where the on-site parking is.
Yeah, so through the, if the chair would allow, I can explain kind of how we anticipate the parking will work. Each unit will have a two-car garage. So there'll be two spaces within the garage. There will be two or more spaces within the driveway. So in terms of visitors, we would expect that most folks, without having a party, would generally be able to accommodate. We would certainly be willing to sign and, try to police to the best of the ability, those spaces. Whether, in actuality, you can police that. But I would think most times, it's not going to be proximate to any of the units. Most of the units, it'll be kind of out of the way. If anything, the roadway is wide enough that if people have an extra car, they might be on the roadway, worst case scenario.
George,
The proposed site is within our watershed protection district.
Water supply.
Water supply.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to understand how those two work in consort together. I see here in the definition that there's an expectation that a building lot has to be pretty big in these areas. It says here, minimum lot of water supply areas to be at least 80,000 square feet.
So, because this is a special permit for residential open space cluster, within the cluster provision, it delineates how many units per acre are allowed based on the water supply protection district versus a cluster in another zoning district.
Okay.
And the idea is that you're leaving enough area to infiltrate water back into the aquifer. So in a cluster, you're looking at the bigger picture. So this is 80 acres, but the units are on 25 acres. So that's how the calculation goes. The
The-
number that you're referring to is based on individual lots. So if someone were to come in and put a road in and chop up housing lots, all of those lots individually would have to be 80,000 square feet.
And
Because on each lot, it's anticipated that there would be enough area to infiltrate water back to the aquifer. Whereas in a cluster, you're looking at the bigger picture for that infiltration.
I think it would be good to see that plan too, where you calculate the cluster requirements.
Sure.
I think it's C15.
was it that calculation that resulted in dropping from 40 to 39?
Yes.
All right. A lot going on this one.
But so in that upper corner, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a density factor of 0.54 units per acre in the WSP. So that's, if you're in a different zone, there'd be a different density factor that you would use to calculate the number of units you can have. And I just wanted to clarify that they're allowed to count land that's in East Hampton.
Yeah.
As part of this. Okay. That's what I figured, but just thought I'd ask.
So this sheet, oh, sorry.
The excluded area,
So that's not.
that's not included in it.
So just to orient folks to the plan that we're showing, so this is an overall plan showing the entirety of the, showing the entirety of the property. So the perimeter is outlined in red dashed line. We have the project area that's far to the east. As mentioned, it's about 25 acres of land. The remaining portion of the land has been cataloged and described either as wetland, slopes not exceeding 8%, and the other based on the other criteria. So we have in the upper left-hand corner our unit density calculation, which results in the potential for 39 units. We also have in the bottom right corner, we have a calculation that talks about the total tract area, the project area, the required open space, and then we get through all those calculations. And if there's any questions on those, we'd be happy to answer those. But generally, if you work your way from the top and kind of read through, it's described in the same general outline format as the zoning regs.
And this project area, is there like an A&R or something that will come through where that gets carved off and the rest of it gets deeded to the city? How is that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you'd want to make sure you clarify that in the condition. So because this requires open space dedication, you'd want to verify at a point at which the open space comes to the city. And they would have to survey the area that's shown on the plans that would be deeded off from, because there are multiple parcels. We'll start with that. Multiple parcels make up this project, and ultimately they're all going to be merged into two effectively, because you'll have the ultimate development parcel and then the rest of it when it's dedicated to the city. And so just a little bit of clarifying about that. There are remains of this formal gravel operation that are in piles, and the applicant will remove those before this open space is dedicated to the city. The city obviously doesn't want those on the open space, but also those piles can be reused as back into the project or elsewhere. So.
And that's pretty clearly delineated here in
Mhm.
green, so
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, any other questions from the board? I want to open up to the public soon. Rich?
The applicant mentioned wetlands concerns were resolved with the Conservation Commission. Can you just give us a thumbnail of what those wetland concerns were so we understand what happened there?
Sure. So there's some history here on the subject property. I believe the former owner had some violations that needed to be resolved. Those violations were resolved, I believe, through an administrative consent order permit with DEP. As part of that, the wetland resource areas within the subject property, the entirety of the 80 acres was delineated by David Cameron. He's a local wetland scientist, former director of the Western Regional Office for Mass DEP. He had determined the wetland boundaries through both communities, and we have a determination of those boundaries. And then he has a separate ongoing process with, I believe East Hampton is taken care of, and Northampton is pending 26th on the 26th. So for the actual notice of it, so there, a determination of the boundaries, but and a resolution to the former enforcement order from the previous owner, but we're currently pending notice of intent. The project area that we're proposing is arguably outside of wetland resource area jurisdiction in general. And we are, the project itself is kind of taking place here. Really, the filing is more for the trail and some of the, the alternate access points.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
George, do you?
My esteemed colleague Rich beat me to it. It was just about where we are in the process with the Conservation Commission.
Okay, any other first comments from the board here? I'm gonna open it up to the public. All right, so public comment. We're gonna try to keep a time limit of 3 minutes. I'll remind you to state your name and address for the record and direct your questions and comments to the board. And then we'll consolidate all the issues that are raised and ask back to the applicant as necessary. I'd like to start with public comment here in council chambers, then we'll move on to Zoom once we've heard from everyone here. So if anyone would like to speak, kindly approach the podium.
Get very nervous doing this. My name is Linda Gauthier and I live at 282 Glendale Road. And my driveway is on this blind corner in this project. And for me, this is probably the most dangerous place you could live. I'd also like to define the most dangerous place on Glendale Road from 255 Glendale to 343 Glendale Road. This new proposed intersection is right in this location. This location is incredibly dangerous because it's an incredibly narrow road. It has blind corners and acts as a relaxed, if you will, S-curve to drive and bike through. Safety is my primary concern in this area, and as residents, we're often overlooked. The head of the Department of Public Works has been to my driveway. She was so terrified she wouldn't pull in, and she parked on the side road and walked up. Walking is also incredibly dangerous on this section, as I've described. Once again, I want to talk about safety here, not only for the cars that will be pulling in and out, but most concerned about bicycle traffic. If you don't live here, this is a huge bicycle connector road, and most of the traffic, well, it goes up and down, but coming down on this descent on a bicycle, the grade is about 6%, once again, blind S-curves, and the distance that a car would have to pull out to see means the cyclist is already dead. And I really, really would like you to take a look at this. Come out here. I have stood in the snow and I've stood in the fall when the trees still had their leaves and brush. And as much as these computer things show stuff, boots on the ground. I can't do the physics involved in this, but I can tell you, I can stand there and I can look right and left. And I can tell you, there's not a lot of sight distance. The number they're saying don't add up in my mind. I try to stack school buses, which are about 35 to 40 feet end to end. And I'm like, is that really 12 school buses that you can see? I can't imagine that. Their numbers talk about distance, and they're saying that Park Hill Road is approximately 120 feet from this driveway to pull out if you're looking north. Well, at the bottom of Park Hill Road is where the city has posted a blind curve. So if these sight distance numbers in this Bowman report are 300 to 400, Park Hill Road is 120 northbound, looking left. How is that possible that you can see? The city, as I said, has already said it's a blind curve. Once again, safety. Speeds are really off the charts. And when they've done a recent survey, I saw the things up by the dump. The dump is the flattest, safest part of the road, although some of the highest speeds. That's me. Anyways, I really hope that people stand here and that every person approving this dresses warm and takes a bike down and looks to the right where the cars are going to pull out, because a cyclist will probably die. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, step on up.
Hi, my name is Maureen Bowler. I live on 165 Glendale, and I too am nervous. I usually don't attend these things. I have a few concerns. Some of them aren't even really related to the project, but the project is going to add to it. So I called the police chief last week, and we had a lovely talk. I'm talking about the speeding again on Glendale Road. And I know some studies were used, but I have some concerns. If these studies aren't real studies and they're book studies, Glendale Road is an anomaly. And I think on some of the plans I saw, and I apologize because I'm not good at reading that stuff, it's draw reference to some sort of study in 2016. And that might be wrong. But we've had new condos. You've got those big condos at the top of the, we call it Breakey's Hill. I was born in the house I live in, so I'm pre-dump. So been out there a long time. So that's Breakey's Hill, okay? So you've got the new condos there. We've got the Habitat for Humanity homes. But if somebody's just looking at a book in Boston and doing a study based on the number of residential homes, we also have two homes, which I'm going to call state homes, and they're great neighbors, don't get me wrong. I don't know if they're service net or what, but one kind of kitty corner from me has so much workers that they blacktop the front yard basically to park. So there's a lot of traffic there. It's not just a residential home. A lot of workers, a lot of stuff going on. And at the top of Breakey's Hill on the left-hand side is another one. There's constant ambulances, there's a lot more activity. So my fear is if somebody's just looking at a book, we aren't the standard book numbers. And then we have the dump. And I know the dump is in theory closed, but it's not. And we all know that. And I can tell you the counts of cars going in there. So my other concern is big time on the traffic and that the numbers that we're looking at might not be accurate. And the chief drew reference to a study that was done more towards the, I'm going to call it the beginning of Glendale Road. And you can't put the wires out there. You can use them to count, but you can't do speed there because if somebody's doing 55 miles an hour there, then they're through the intersection of 66. I'm sorry, it's too late. And if they're trying to come around from 66 onto Glendale, that corner, you can't be going the 55, 60 miles an hour that people seem to feel entitled to. So that. My other concern is water, and I didn't know about this meeting till later on tonight. I called Donna Scalia just by chance this morning, told her it wasn't an emergency, if she could get back to me, because I want to know what's going on at the dump with the water department right at the, when you pull in, that I don't know if it's that they have to look at it because it's testing negative or something's going on. And I've asked my neighbors, and some of them can attest to it, even a few months ago to watch for their water pressure because I've seen a difference in our water pressure. So this is all pre any of this. And they're going to be going downhill. We're uphill. My other concerns are curiosity. I'm curious if there's going to be cellars or if the water basin in these units, or if it's slab because the water basin is so tight there. We're all septic tanks up the rest of us. So I'm curious about, I mean, I'm just nosy, what kind of deal you make with East Hampton. So you pay, a tax to Northampton, you pay your water, I'm assuming the water tax, I call it the rainwater tax, sorry, that is what it is to me. So we pay that. So then do they pay a sewer bill to East Hampton?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what
And
they'll
then is this going to be a public, so is the DPW going to plow this? Or is, well,
No,
now,
this is a
don't
drive.
forget, we're going to have parking for the bike paths. So how long is that going to last before the DPW is plowing this? So now, part of this hill is plowed by East Hampton. Part of this hill is plowed by Northampton. That's going to be really interesting. And now East Hampton comes up and turns around in the dump because I get to look at the lights coming through, so
Okay, we're
this is
gonna-
going to get even more interesting.
We're probably
So
into
things
7
to
minutes.
think about, okay?
Okay, thank
Things
you
to
so
think
much.
about. Thank you.
Yeah, come on up.
Me or, sorry, I didn't know if she was headed up. Are you speaking?
No,
Okay.
State your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Nikorchuk and I live at 343 Glendale Road. I've looked at the maps and I don't see my house anywhere on there, even though I'm probably the closest abutter except 285. I reside at 343 Glendale Road and I'm speaking regarding the plan that's before you tonight. I understand this board has the authority to grant a special permit, but that authority comes with clear obligations under Northampton zoning and Massachusetts law. Before approval, the board must find that the project protects adjoining premises from serious detrimental impacts and complies with environmental performance standards. This project involves significant site disturbance. My licensed structural engineer, who is on Zoom, and I've presented to you all a report from that engineer prior to tonight's meeting, as well as his letter, has submitted a report showing that foreseeable vibration from blasting or excavation could damage nearby foundations and structures. This is not speculative. It is expert evidence of real measurable risk. Given this, the board cannot responsibly make its required findings without imposing safeguards to protect the neighboring properties. I'm not asking you to control how the contractor builds. I'm asking you to ensure that impacts are monitored and mitigated, so the ordinance's requirements are met. Reasonable standard safeguards would include a pre-construction structural survey of nearby homes to establish a baseline noise and vibration measurement prior to construction, a construction monitoring plan with clear vibration thresholds, stop work provisions if thresholds are exceeded, independent third-party oversight where appropriate. These conditions are enforceable, measurable, and directly tied to the board's finding under the ordinance. They are not optional best practices. They are necessary for the board to comply with its legal responsibilities. If the board believes construction impacts are outside its jurisdiction, I respectfully point out that the zoning standards do not distinguish between the temporary and permanent impacts. Temporary vibration can cause permanent structural harm, which falls squarely within the quote-unquote serious detrimental impact standard. Similarly, while other agencies regulate blasting or noise for safety, the board's role is to protect neighborhood character in adjoining properties, independent of those regulations. Without these conditions, neighboring properties are at a real risk, and the board cannot make findings required to approve this special permit. I urge the board to require robust, enforceable, pre-construction safeguards. Doing so protects abutters, ensures compliance with zoning, and allows this project to proceed responsibly, if it proceeds at all. I would also like to point out, looking at the map, that the stormwater, basin, I think it's called, is less than 100 feet from my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, my engineer is online. His name is Mark. Oh, I've lost his last name. One other thing I'd like to say is, if they're looking at the plans from Glendale Road, it's not accurate. Glendale Road is not regulation width. I've contacted the mayor, the city. No one will come out to measure the width of the road. It's not regulation. I've measured it myself because I've almost been pushed off the road 5 or 6 times. It's a very dangerous road. Extremely dangerous. My daughter just got her license and I worry every night until she gets past that S curve. It's not safe. And if you guys let this project occur, someone's going to get hurt. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Ilsa Barron and I live at 183 Glendale Road. Maureen is my next door neighbor. And I as well am a pre-dump resident. I live in the family home my parents built. And I just recently moved back there after living in Florence Center for many years. But I had strong connections, never let go of my connections to Glendale. When we first found out about this proposed project, I think all of us had sort of the wind go out of our lungs at the size of it. And looking at it now, it's gasp worthy again. We have serious concerns living out on Glendale about the traffic. It's already very hard to live on this road. The width of it's hard. The speed of the traffic and the volume of traffic is very difficult at certain times of the day. And that hill is a nightmare. If this project goes through as proposed, I won't be going down that way anymore. I will go out of my way to avoid it just because I don't want to get caught into something that I can't see around a vehicle coming out of that street. I think the proposal for where it's been cut in to access this project is a disaster waiting to happen. Having lived, I have 60 years of experience living on this street. It's the toughest road to live on. I lived on North Main on Route 9. That was easier getting out of the driveway than this will be. This is not going to work as I can see it. And as other people have expressed, we have concerns about our water pressure, the quality of the water that we're going to be getting. We've had problems in the past of rust in our water. And that was quite a while ago, but we just barely got the water flow, good. And now we're looking at more draw on it. That was one of the things that jumped out at me right from the start, is all that draw. So I don't mind that it's being built on. it's natural progress. It's the way of life. It's just the scope of it seems so huge, and it's going to have such an impact on the neighborhood that's already existing. We just barely, those of us have lived out there for many, many years, and we're not the only ones. There are quite a few other residents that have lived there for a long, long time. It's just barely gotten quiet. We lived through all those years and years and years of the dump and all the trucks. And now we're facing delivery trucks, construction trucks, all the things that affect quality of life. Yes, it's short term, but it's going to be there. And we don't know how long this is going to take, when it's going to start. We're just 4 people. This is a, you know, a densely populated neighborhood. We're not the only ones that have expressed concerns. Others have come to us and said, I can't be there tonight, but please, you know, say, I have, you know, misgivings about this as well. So we're just small sampling.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chris Stratton, Redford Drive. I represent Ward 6 in the City Council, so not only current Glendale residents, but purchasers of these homes will be my constituents. I was curious whether the cluster calculation actually holds when a lot of the open space will actually be uphill from the development, but I like the single-story layouts, as so long as someone in a household drives, there's possibility here for those who find stairs an issue. And if the conservation parking and trail around the south side of the houses are placed clear of the retention pond and grades are gentle, then we might for the first time get true public access from the Glendale side into what between CPA purchases and deeded open space will be more than 170 conserved acres. But layout and grade of that trail are important. The last time we had what looked like access from this side, the retention basin for the habitat houses ended up blocking it. Proper public access to the conservation is also key to end trespassing across private property. And I'd ask the board to consider if the roundabout walk from a western inner home east, around and south to go west again truly meets the requirement for access from the housing to the open space. To preempt a conflict-prone desire path, I'd suggest an official path atop the sewer line where it exits from the circle between homes. But while some housing here makes sense, this most car-dependent corner of the city seems an unwise place for 39 homes. It's nowhere near a bus line, and the intimidating Manhan River Valley, as much as the 3 miles, discourages biking to the closest grocery store, which is Big E's. So those who live here will drive to everything, and will find their lives limited as they lose comfort driving rural roads at night, and eventually with driving at all. And driving means more traffic on a hill that is already the worst part of one of our most challenged roads, notorious for single vehicle crashes. State data for the hill as a whole shows 4 crashes in the period where the spot report found only 2, and there have been another 2 since then. A heating oil truck crashed here and spilled in 1996. I would echo the McClure report's concerns about the misalignment with Park Hill Road. That would basically preclude ever making this a 4-way stop or something. And I also echo the request there for a speed study on the hill pre-permit to figure out what the applicable distances for sightlines would be. I'm a little uncertain that the 335-foot sightline uphill for an exiting left turn onto Glendale actually exists on the hill. Related to that, that curve also means that there's an intermediate point in the approach down the hill where, unlike a car, a bicycle descending near the curb would be hidden from the view of an entering driver. This is a bike route between ends of the rail trail, and that hill means someone could easily be descending at 25 or 30 and unable to avoid a collision with a driver who would pull out unable to see them in time. And climbing the hill, there isn't room for a car to pass in the same lane. But it takes me about, on a good day, 90 seconds to get up the hill to where a driver can again see to pass me. The more cars entering, the more chance of conflict on the hill. So I would ask the board to consider if a simple mitigation fee is sufficient, or if 39 units in this location can truly meet the requirement that a proposal be compatible, not only with motorized traffic, but as required with bicycle and pedestrian use of this roadway and residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think we've heard from everyone in council chambers. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak? I think we're good, so I'd like to open it up to Zoom at this time. Carolyn, can you help me out with that? Okay, so Andrea, we see you have your hand raised. Could you please give us your name and address?
Hello, I'm Andrea Wasserman, live at 245 Glendale Road, and I'm just north of this proposed development.
We might need you to unmute.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
I just don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry, we didn't have volume in here, but it sounds like now we do, so we're
Oh,
ready to hear from you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, could you please start over?
Yes, of course. My name's Andrea Wasserman, and I live here at 245 Glendale Road with my husband Leonard, and we're both here tonight. So my main concern is the traffic. Glendale Road is already very high in traffic. It's used as a cut-through street by many drivers, and many of them don't adhere to the speed limit. Where I live is just north of the hill that everyone's talking about. And for me to get out of my driveway, I have to, if I'm going north, I have to make sure no one's coming from the north to the left. And then I look right, and if there's no one coming, I have to pull out fast. And very often there's a car right behind me. I mean, they come up so fast over that hill. It's a real problem now. And with 39 new homes, there's going to be at least 39 more cars in the long run, which will just make it that much worse. So something was said about traffic studies and crashes and mitigation plan. I'd like to know what all that is. I didn't see anything in the supporting documents about that, but traffic is a real concern. And as other residents have noted, there are a lot of bikes, and there will be more crashes. Something has to be done on that hill. Whether it's a flashing light to slow down, or a speed bump. I think at the very least something has to be done on that hill. So those are my concerns.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Carolyn, any others on Zoom? Okay. Thank you. So I've been writing down the comments that I've been hearing. I think the main theme of the evening seems to be traffic. There were discussions in the McClure report about site distances generated based on the posted 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, but as we all know, people drive faster than the posted speed limit. So I guess I'm curious how we address that issue, number one, when we talk about site distance. And could you clarify the exhibit that you put together with the site distances? Was that based on the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit?
So excuse me, so a couple things. So there's the Bowman report dated September 24th, 2025, which details their review of the project. They look at the existing conditions on Glendale Road. They look at the proposed project, trip generation, site distance, and the overall crash data from the area. So that report, as you can see, if you go to the conclusions page, which I think is the second to last page, where it shows, they're arguably not necessary. They're not recommending any mitigation based on what they're seeing. So the anecdotal information that we have from the folks, I understand people pull out of their driveways. We understand, and we understand the potential concern about additional traffic. Certainly this will add some traffic. but they look at the AASHTO standards for stopping sight distance and intersecting sight distance based on the typical requirements. And it's a scientific approach as opposed to an anecdotal approach or questions related to, non-scientific means. We do have survey information, geometry of the roadway, slope of the roadway, all of that was looked at. Our site distance drawing that was provided today is based on showing the minimums that they're easily achieved. Obviously, the Bowman report shows what's available as part of their report, but the minimums on our both our cross sections and our plan view show that the geometry works, and frankly, it exceeds the AASHTO requirements based on the Bowman report.
I'm just trying to look at the grading here as you're pulling out of the driveway and looking to your left or north up Glendale Road, which I believe that's the uphill side of Glendale. So the ground is also sloping up there. You're showing tree clearing to install that new sidewalk. Yeah, maybe you could zoom in just to this intersection on the plan there.
Share a Google Earth Street View to show.
Yeah, the current Google Earth Street View shows the cut-in of the driveway, so it's very up to date. And I have reviewed it. Thank you.
How's that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, can you kind of
Maybe
can we
more?
zoom in any more? I know that thing's hard to operate. Yeah, that's probably pretty good for folks in Zoom land. So you're showing a sidewalk that kind of wraps around and along Glendale Road there,
That's correct.
and tree clearing back. I mean, that looks like 10 or 15 feet.
Correct. And actually, the grade drops away from Glendale Road.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of a clear.
yeah. So it's about 258, drops to about 252. So there's about a 6-foot drop from this point to this point across. So we're, it's not like it's a cut slope that you have to look around the corner looking left as you're exiting. It's actually lower. So as you pull up to Glendale Road, that, our work there with the sidewalk and the grading and the tree clearing will certainly improve conditions that people may be concerned about.
And those trees are all on your property, basically, because the right of way isn't very wide right there. As I can tell.
I believe, I think that.
I'm not sure why it's not on the map because it's right there, but not on any of the maps.
So, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Do you?
So
You're on maps I'm looking at.
Yeah.
343.
Just saying the ones I saw, I didn't see my home noted. So if they're there, I apologize.
I believe you.
Okay. So we do have a tree clearing plan cataloged and reviewed by an arborist. That information has been provided. So we do have a detail of all those trees. We can certainly look at that closely. But yes, there are some trees to be cleared in that area. And then obviously the sidewalk would be within the Glendale Road right of way,
Okay, thank you.
or at least the portion along Glendale.
And then there was a traffic mitigation fees calculated, but a lot of times sometimes that can get paid into the general
Right.
fund for projects elsewhere, and other times we take that money and apply it right at the project site.
Yeah.
So
So if I
you're
could.
way ahead of me.
Yeah, and I can clarify what all of the traffic mitigation requirements are in the zoning, what that means. So the applicants are required to show the incremental impacts to the existing system and the existing network in order to mitigate for those incremental increases. So nobody is required to take care of all the existing traffic issues per se, but every time a new house or new project that comes to the planning board comes in, depending on the district, that applicant, whether it's a 2-family, 3-family, 10 units, has to pay in a proportional share of their incremental increase in trips generated to the site. So that is sometimes done in a payment in lieu of actually making safety improvements to the network, or it can be improvements to the network or design for improvements to the network, depending on how much can be accomplished within the value that's already predetermined in the zoning. So in this case, it's 3,000 because of the rural suburban district. The mitigation is $3,000 per unit. So we've had a conversation internally. The Department of Public Works, the Police Department, Transportation and Parking Commission have evaluated data because of the complaints, the existing condition complaints that you heard tonight from residents. And so there's already been an internal discussion about how do you address speeding on Glendale Road. The director of DPW has suggested that it would be appropriate to utilize the traffic mitigation funds that are required for off-site mitigation to evaluate the installation of a 3-way stop at Glendale and Park Hill Road as a mechanism to address speeding. It would also address the sight distance concerns, people speeding down the hill. Obviously, if they have to stop, there's a lot more time to have residents pull out. There could also be an evaluation of speed tables or other vertical, diverters on Glendale Road to address speeding. But the recommendation would be to look at that intersection in particular as the closest one, and then implement, to the extent that it doesn't reach the maximum level of mitigation required, implement whatever the results of that study are. And so that sort of gets at a lot of the issues that have been identified. The city is aware of existing conditions, but again, applicants aren't required to address all the existing conditions that are present in a situation before the project, is approved. And then just to think about in terms of, whether this is too many units coming onto the road network, I'd like to speak a little bit to, oftentimes we get traffic studies where the traffic engineer says, this is such a small incremental increase in peak hour trips that will be generated, and that's the key number, is sort of the afternoon peak between 4 and 6 p.m. That traffic engineers' typical response is, this is negligible, therefore no mitigation is required. But our zoning says, that's great, but we know that every project has that incremental impact, so we're going to go ahead and have that addressed. So that's why you regularly see responses from traffic engineers saying there's no mitigation required, because they're not thinking in terms of incremental impacts. They're thinking like huge, massive impacts. Looking at this project relative to the rest of the homes on Glendale Road, if you start at 66 and come south towards the landfill, you count up about 39 homes from there to about the landfill driveway. It's about 41 homes. Those are all 41 driveways that are coming into Glendale, which is obviously a much greater impact on the road and safety, as opposed to consolidating the same number of units off of one driveway that this project would create. So that's a
Sorry.
safer way to address the.
Sorry, Carolyn, but those 40 houses or so are all on the straightaway,
Yep.
where the sight distance is so much better than the curve.
I'm not suggesting that the
Yeah.
site distance isn't an issue. I'm just
Okay.
saying overall, in terms of total traffic
Volume.
and where you see conflicts are typically from individual driveways. But I think the idea of having the study look at what mechanisms can be installed to slow traffic will address what the applicants or the residents are have raised in terms of speeding and concerns of safety on the street.
So you mentioned, for example, that a three-way stop at Park Hill. What, what would be the steps to get to that?
So yes, and then before I answer that question, the other piece about looking at that intersection, and the applicant's required to provide sidewalks on a project if it makes sense. The reason why this sidewalk is shown here up to Park Hill is that if there were a stop sign, you could then get a crosswalk, and now you've got the ability to cross over to Park Hill Road or vice versa to get to the open space. And also in the long run, we are looking at a bike connector along Park Hill Road extension all the way through, so that then begins to connect these neighborhoods via other means than vehicular access. But so the way this would manifest is, so the applicant is obligated, and typically your conditions require traffic mitigation to be addressed at the time of certificate of occupancy. So, and that's because that's when the impact starts developing. So in this scenario, you could have a condition where, the study is done at the more towards the beginning. So 5, 10 house building permits or something like that to conduct the study to understand what mitigation might be appropriate, if a three-way stop is appropriate. And then that would then have to be, if the traffic study results in indicating that this is a good candidate for a three-way stop, then the applicant could then install that by the time the end of the project is completed.
And would we condition specifically this study, or would we,
Yeah, you can do that.
or would the staff just
Either way, but you
recommendations
could,
into
it
place?
might be, if there's a known issue that we're interested, we, meaning the city, is interested in addressing, I think it's appropriate to put in the condition that as part of the offsite traffic mitigation required, that the applicant will undertake the study.
Okay.
And this is a study that we would condition the applicant to undertake?
Yes, and so instead of making a payment into the traffic mitigation fund, they would use the value of that payment to conduct the study.
And if we were to condition on the study,
Mhm.
could we also condition on if the study finds
Yeah, so
actions are necessary, then those actions must be implemented?
up to the value of what they're required to address based on their incremental impacts. So it's $117,000. So,
Yeah, it's not gonna buy a whole lot.
Well, they
But-
could buy some stop signs.
and it could be a speed, it could also purchase a speed bump. I mean, these are low ticket items to address
Yeah.
speeding issues.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, then if we have that study and we know it, and maybe it's only a stop sign and one speed bump, but there may be, the study says that you should have 3 along the whole corridor, then the city has a study, the city can then do the other 2 speed
Right,
bumps. I'm just
right.
making the number up.
Yep,
but just-
yep.
It's a tricky stretch there. It's anecdotal evidence, it's not data, but I lived down on Clark Lane for 5 years. I know that area pretty well. I went there the other day in the snow with a couple other people and stood there because I could only walk about 200 yards into the site without my snowshoes. While I was there, and I was only there for about a half an hour, 4 dump trucks went by me, 3 coming down and 1 going up. It's a busy place, and they were hauling. So my question is, I wonder if the applicant ever looked at a different location to access the site rather than this dicey area, more up north to where there's a flat area.
Mhm.
or even, I don't know what the other road, the older access road that comes by the abutter's house, still put you in kind of a curved area, which isn't good. So an alternative access and to the site might be really beneficial in this situation.
I would love to respond to that. So the issue, the real issue with that street is that people don't comply with the speed limit.
Yeah.
So the speed limit is 30. Obviously, we all agree that everybody goes much faster.
Yeah.
Something needs to be done about the speed. So the location of the entryway onto Glendale Road is the best location for sight distance, both north and south. It really gives you greatest, and we're totally in compliant and exceed compliance with the sight distance for that speed limit. We're way over, but people don't do the speed limit. We know that.
Right.
So how do we address that? I think the 4 or 3-way stop sign is going to really help everyone, north and south of that location, and people need to slow down. We're in a good place if we can get them to do something near the speed limit. So how do we do that? I mean, I don't think it's by moving the entryway. That doesn't really help. That they're still going to speed along there. But I think the 3-way stop sign is a great solution and in a good location to stop them from coming too fast up the hill and too fast down the hill. I really think it's a good solution. So, but I think the traffic study is gonna help us answer that question. But I think the real trouble with that roadway is speed. I mean, people are going from East Hampton to Northampton. That's the connector.
Yep.
That's one of the
Yep.
main connectors.
Yep.
And they want to get there quickly.
Yep.
Well, it's not safe.
I wanted to, another comment that was brought up was connection to the trail system kind of from the loop road itself, so residents can get to the trail also without having to go to those 3 satellite parking spaces. So would you consider a connection, like a more formalized connection from looks like in between units 10 and 11,
So
which is right where your sewer force main goes
we
through?
had originally proposed, there, so I think the parking that we're proposing and the trail that goes behind and near the detention basin, there's a sidewalk for the residents to get to that trail connection. I mean, it's very possible that people will cut through. I mean, the goal is to get to the place, get behind the homes and to where the sewer line goes through the area that crosses a wetland,
Mhm.
which is already in place. Because that goes, opens up the greater open space, which also connects to the future Clear Falls and all that. But I'd rather not have a formal connection between those 2 homes. And I think the sidewalks for the residents leading to the area that does connect to the greater open space would be utilized. It's possible. Yeah, that we originally had parking and an area. And so my concern was residents of Northampton from not within the neighborhood would park between those 2 homes, and that becomes an invitation for, folks outside of the neighborhood to sort of disturb the residents in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think you're also creating an invitation though for residents in the neighborhood to disturb residents in the neighborhood in units 10 and 11 if there's not a formal connection there, then they're gonna.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know, that may unfold that way over time. We can look at it. I have concerns of residents outside the neighborhood finding their way down the sidewalk and sort of, yeah.
It doesn't preclude the residents in the future for creating their own additional connections, right? The one connection that's being shown is the required one in terms of the code, but that doesn't mean that the residents association can't decide to say, hey, let's do a little path here.
Yeah, I thought the cluster requirements though that was also for the residents of the
Right, but
cluster.
that's what they're saying is that would be the official path.
The official path would be walk all the way down to unit 1, get on the
Yeah.
path and walk all the way back.
Yeah, the way, human nature is to find the path of least resistance, and that would be what you're talking about.
One of the things that we're doing as part of the conservation submission is there are some areas on the west side that are, there's an intermittent stream that it's been permitted, it's been determined that it's intermittent, and we're permitting crossings. We're not going to build them, but we're going to permit the bridge work that would cross these. So at some point those could be built, and that's another access for the residents, a sort of a shortcut to get to the larger trail system on the west side. So these are, sort of a point of generosity on our part to take the effort to permit these future crossings that add to the connectivity of many of the trails that exist. And there's quite a trail system out there. So I think it's going to evolve in such a way that some of the residents find their way through at times through what is a dry stream to another trail system. And if it isn't dry, at some point, the helical pile bridge will get built. There's two of them. Different residents, I think, will find different paths to the trail system, depending on where they live within the neighborhood.
Where are those bridges? Are they on, can you see them on this plan?
They're on that plan with the red line.
I thought, excuse me, I thought the note was that the applicant was gonna do those bridge works.
So the bridges were originally proposed as part of the larger red trail
Uh-huh.
system. And that was to be in lieu of as an exchange for the traffic mitigation fee.
I
So
see.
there's something in the zoning that says that extensive a trail system could offset some of the traffic mitigation fee. As it turns out, the cost to build that is much greater than the fee itself, and the fee seems to be needed elsewhere, for the purpose of traffic mitigation. So instead of, so we decided not to go forward with that, but to continue with permitting the bridges so that they can be built in the future.
Okay, and then the other concern I heard was about construction impacts, noise, vibration, those sorts of things. I know that our zoning regulations, let me see, let me find it here. So I could be wrong, but I think we have decibel limits by land use. So in a residential zone, there's a 60 decibel limit at the property line in daytime, which is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then at nighttime, we have a 50 decibel limit from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that's enforced. Who enforces those decibel limits?
The building department, and that's for sort of, that's measured continuous sound over across an hour.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
So that's
So-
enforced at the building department.
So that's a known, enforceable,
Yep.
specific.
Yep.
Those are limits for construction,
It's for anything.
for anything.
Right. But often construction does not fall into that because it's not a continuous noise, right? Necessarily. So
Limits for construction.
no, not directly. No.
And
I mean, there's hours of operation, but not, not.
one of the
level.
comments expressed concern about blasting. Is there any blasting anticipated?
Right.
No drilling?
So do we have some test pit information about what
We
we're
do. Yep.
encountering
Yeah,
there?
we have test pit information, the sands and gravels in general. We have test pit information throughout the site, as well as obviously anecdotal information from the former operator of the facility. That said, this is pretty straightforward standard construction, not a lot of great cuts and fills. We don't anticipate blasting. If there was blasting by outside chance there was, there would be a blasting survey required. There's very specific requirements should that ever happen, which we don't anticipate, but should it ever happen, it would have to go through the proper channels and the proper permitting for that work as a standard. As far as the typical requirements. There'll be an on-site stormwater pollution prevention plan related to how, materials are handled on site. Typical roadway compaction, rollers, et cetera, significantly away from the adjacent properties. While it feels like it might be close because it feels like it's in people's backyards, there is just about a couple 100 feet in, there's this significant topographical change that actually buffers the properties to the southeast, from the existing facility, which will become the active area of the project. There's also significant buffer to the other, in the other sides, obviously to the west, thousands of feet, and then to the north, there's vegetated buffers. So again, typical straightforward construction, nothing you haven't seen on just about every site development project. Obviously, all the residential requirements, any ordinances will have to be adhered with. And again, if there's any violations of those would be addressed again through the building department or other departments that may have jurisdiction.
So, I'm looking at your existing conditions plan. I see house 343 on there. It seems like they're at about elevation 235. Then the grade goes all the way up to 265, so 30 feet higher. And then it drops back down again to 239.
Exactly.
So there's like a 30-foot mound of earth in
Yeah.
between your project and house 343.
To be fair, a portion of it for sure.
So, and then I'm looking at, what unit was that? It was by test pit 8. That's about 450 feet away from that house. The stormwater basin is about 200 feet away from the house. So that's what I'm seeing on the plans.
Yep. I think all those general statements are accurate.
And I guess another question for the applicant would be, there's going to be a lot of sand and gravel moving around in order to level the site for your work.
In general, yeah. There will be on site. Yeah.
Looking at the topo lines
Yeah.
before and after, there are big changes that have to happen.
Yeah. There'll be earthwork for sure.
Yeah, and so all that, will that generate a lot of noise and vibration?
So typical construction vehicles, big yellow toys, Tonka trucks type of thing, for sure. There'll be, there is noise, there's backup beeping, for safety purposes. Those types of noises would certainly be heard. Again, the majority of this area, at least from the southeast, will be buffered by that, 30 to 40 foot topographic change. As far as that, beyond that, yeah, I mean, there's going to be earthwork done. But as far as vibrations, the majority of the work to be completed on the roadway, certainly the loop portion of the roadway is well away from any sort of sensitive receptors. And again, just standard work that has to meet all the criteria of a normal construction project.
I want to hear a little bit more from the board if we have any other comments.
Can you tell me a little bit, the entrance into the property? It's sandwiched by the two retention basins there. And the one on the southerly side is really steep. What do you propose along the roadway there to protect vehicles, and are there guardrails? Is there a fence? I can't quite make it out on the plan.
Okay. Let me zoom in for you, sir. So I think you're talking about the area adjacent to infiltration basin 1. Is that
Correct. Yeah.
So that's I believe that's a 3-to-1 slope. There is there's the roadway, there's a proposed guardrail, there's a proposed shoulder that will arguably, I don't want to call it flat, but it'll be a very subtle slope for 8 or 10 feet or so. And then there's a 3-to-1 slope, which is a mowable slope. So guardrail, bituminous drive, Cape Cod berm, guardrail, shoulder, and then a 3-to-1 slope, mowable slope.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Can I ask about sidewalks? I know it came up during that side conversation about the McClure report and that this is a cluster development, not a subdivision. But to me, it looks like a subdivision and by a generic term of subdivision. And one of the differences was the sidewalks in a subdivision had to be concrete and on both sides of the roadway. And then in this plan, what do we have here for a sidewalk?
One side of the roadway, all the way out to the entry. So, does the full loop and then out to the entry and then along Glendale. And I want to confirm material is, I think it's concrete, but let me just check. It would either be that or bituminous.
What-
It's a 4-foot wide bituminous.
Okay.
So I just want to, yeah, I can clarify there are different standards in the subdivision rules for different streets. So this and then just to back up, not to confuse things too much, you can create a subdivision is all about creating street infrastructure, building a road that creates frontage. So in that scenario, you're going to build, and sometimes it's for public street acceptance by city council, sometimes it's not. So a subdivision is purely about creating a road to meet the frontage requirements to create lots. So in this scenario, this is not a subdivision because it's not creating a street from which you're then carving off lots. So they are building a loop, effectively a driveway, like in many of the condominium locations you might see, like where you've got multiple homes on a shared parcel. So in the subdivision standards, if you were to look at that, there are different sidewalk requirements depending on the type of street. So in some scenarios, you have a sidewalk, you don't have any sidewalks. In another street layout form, you might have a sidewalk on one side only, might be concrete, might be, it's primarily charged to be cement concrete. This issue also comes up with sidewalk construction for the DPW on public streets. Is like, where is it appropriate to have cement concrete versus bituminous? Typically in the rural residential and suburban residential, sidewalk construction is bituminous. So, McClure was applying a subdivision requirement whereas this is not. So they are required to have a sidewalk because of special permanent site plan requirements. You need to have separated pedestrian facilities. So I think in this scenario, there's a connected loop that connects all the units. And so if you all didn't feel that was meeting that standard in the site plan section of creating a pedestrian facility, then you can certainly evaluate that.
Because are we doing the future homeowners a disservice by not having a better sidewalk and a sidewalk on both sides of the road because there are houses on both sides of the road? Or are we saying, I understand this is to be an HOA. These are what we're calling condominiums. But it will be open to the public, so to speak. My friends further up Glendale Road could walk down here and around the loop. Or is this a private enclave? I'm trying to figure that out because I know we had a little discussion about access to the conservation area.
I speak to that through the chair, if that's okay?
Sure.
Yeah. So you asked about doing a disservice to the homeowners. You'd be surprised how cost-conscious homeowners associations become. Having double the sidewalks would be double the cost of maintenance associated with that. We feel that sidewalks on one side will be adequate. People can cross the street to the other side of the road. They can do a nice loop. It's on the interior of that kind of open space. And then again, we have all the walking trails that there will be extensive walking trails going, throughout the 80 acres and beyond. So actually the cost associated with it would be one of the major reasons why we would ask that, both sides not be required. As far as the material, I think the bituminous is appropriate, based on, it's actually easier to traverse and walk if you, have some sort of, disability or something like that, where there's not the scoring in the concrete, et cetera. So,
But bituminous breaks down a lot quicker than a concrete, and you're gonna have
but again,
pitted sidewalks and.
but again, this is a homeowners association who will be maintaining all of the roadways, all of the sidewalks, all of the stormwater basins. The beauty here is that there's no maintenance responsibility for the city going forward. So this is a private community. This is akin to a driveway. So this is a driveway to a community that will be maintained. So that homeowners association will have a fee. Those fees will be put towards maintaining stormwater basins, sidewalks, should they break down, et cetera.
Can we talk about tree mitigation for a second?
Sure.
Um,
I have a sheet that has that. I don't know if you know.
Before could I just one
Oh.
more time? I just want to talk about some precedents of cluster developments in the city that we've been through. Carolyn, I think the Beaver Brook up in Leeds, was that a cluster development?
Yes,
And it's not a city road, right? It's a private road.
right,
There's an HOA there.
yes.
Other cluster developments?
So Emerson Way,
Emerson Way, and that's a one-way in. Yep.
yeah, loop.
Just a loop like this.
Yeah.
Although there's an odd kind of emergency egress.
Right,
That
right,
probably is
right.
never used. We didn't talk about that in this situation at all.
Yeah, and that was a subdivision cluster, so they created a street. Another cluster that was also a subdivision is on the other side of this open space is the Ridge, but that was a subdivision as well. And there's Bear Hill Estates. I'm sorry.
Beaver Brook up in Leeds.
Yeah.
And their Bear Hill Estates.
Yep.
They provided open space
Yep,
to the
that's a
city.
cluster. Yep. And so that's on a driveway, that's not a subdivision. And Meadowbrook is an older, all one parcel with a driveway that goes through. It's just sort of thinking about that as a comparable. That's not a road.
I see.
And then what's the other one? The Gables also is
Is a-
comparable. Yep.
And there was open space of,
That is, yes, I mean, if you look at the aerial, so the property is really deep, all the way to the back is open space. It was probably one of the earlier
okay.
clusters. Lathrop Community is another one. There's open space and that was a cluster.
I'm bringing this up because down the road, I'm going to ask about if the applicant is providing the city some kind of escrow fund. So that because I heard that the street, because it's not a subdivision, doesn't need to be built to the city's standards, even though it's got to be built to industrial standards, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
some places like in Beaver Brook, we ran into an issue with not being built and.
Oh,
it's
construction guarantee.
Construction guarantee, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can certainly think about that as a condition.
I think we ran into that up on Village Hill also, the
Yeah.
last neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I believe on sheet TR1, there's a tree replacement plan that describes the trees, identifies and plan view the trees, as well as a tree inventory on the right-hand side of the plan. And we have DBH and then replacement required. So we had, looks like 1581 inches, and tree replacement required in inches would be 790.5 inches.
Sorry, I was trying to find the plan, so I didn't hear the numbers, but
Okay, I'm sorry.
say it one more time.
So the total tree inventory was calculated at 1,581. And then the replacement would be 790.5.
And what are you proposing to replace? Or what do you have on the plan?
Well, we have some we have the typical street trees, landscaping throughout the facility. And then I believe, you see,
Do you know what that totals up to?
yeah, I gotta find that number. I don't have that. I apologize. I don't have that in my squash.
A plan, I had reported 790 inches of replacement. Total.
Yeah, I just couldn't, I can't find that TR plan.
Oops, sorry. What did I do? I think the note on the bottom right-hand corner of the TR1 plan, per the site landscaping plan sheet C13, a total of 84 deciduous trees are proposed with an average DBH of 2.5 for a total of 210 inches of replacement caliper diameter. Remaining 580.5 of replacement caliper will be provided at an off-site location approved by the planning board, or adequate funds will be paid into the Northampton Tree Replacement Fund.
So would we be okay with a condition that just says that?
Yeah.
Or do we want to say, put it in the fund, or, I don't,
I think the zoning allows the option to either, I mean, you want planning on site. I
Right.
would suggest that.
right,
But then
so we have the
alternative-
210,
Right, the rest of that can be up to the applicant, whether it's off-site or payment in lieu.
okay.
Because at this time, I wouldn't have a recommendation for you about where off-site that should go.
Well, I just want to do a time check. It's 9:07 PM. I know we have another hearing that was scheduled for 8:30.
I swear.
Sure.
It's like 2 sentences, I swear. I just wanted.
Yes, please come on up to the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Thank you for letting me say these last few words. I work from home. I'm a child welfare attorney. If this construction is going to go on for several years, it's going to impact my ability, in my opinion, to earn a living. I stood at my property line with a decibel meter when he was just doing the driveway and knocking down trees with one excavator. It was already over. You're going to have the building department there every day. Does anyone have any questions for the engineer report? He was unfortunately at another meeting when I was speaking. So if anyone has any questions, I know his information is on there. And I'm hoping I didn't spend that $1,700 for nothing. This house is my life savings. And I just put in a brand new in-ground pool for my kids last year. And I'm really praying that nothing happens. So I'm hoping that you guys will take care of me. And I know I'm just one person, but I'm right there. And that's all. Thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you. All right, so I just want to take our pulse here on the planning board. We'll see if we think we can get to a decision tonight, or if we should think about continuing.
It seems like a great program. I mean, a great project. The street is, just like we had that project that we okayed on Old South Street, that weird place just right here on the corner. Didn't actually go through. But it's an F street, like many streets in Northampton. And honestly, it seems like by the end of this, it's going to be like an F plus, and that's just like an improvement.
So I would say that I'm not ready to cast a positive vote at this point. That it would be better from my point of view to continue it. I really need some more information about the traffic mitigation and what might mitigate this entrance onto Glendale, the road. And there's a whole bunch of site plan questions I still have, just some specifics. So I would feel more comfortable in continuing.
So what sort of information are you looking for the applicant so they can come back and you can feel better informed?
I guess much more about the traffic and the mitigation. We've talked about some possibilities of a three-way stop sign. We talked a little bit about the changes in that side of the road looking up the hill because of the sidewalk and the tree cutting. But I'm still not comfortable with the ability to fix the traffic after this project's already in progress. Carolyn mentioned maybe after 10% of the houses were built or 10 houses were built, 25%, they could do this, and then maybe after another 20, they can do some more traffic mitigation. But I just don't think there's been enough investigation of the traffic.
But there's plenty of roads that people speed on. I mean, like, people speed down North Street all the time. And we never once go, oh, we shouldn't have people doing work on it. Come on, that's like, it's not their problem that people do commit a crime.
It would be my problem if kids or come out of this street on a bike or a car comes out and
that happens on every street in this town. No, it does happen on every street on this town. My own children, I get it. And I'm not sure what makes this street in particular any different than any other street. I mean, well, we can delay, that's fine. I'm just, don't get it.
So it sounds like, certainly from George and maybe some other comments, that there may be some clarifying things needed for the plan sets and locations of maybe trails. There's also sort of a list of potential conditions that you all talked about that were in addition to what I submitted in the staff memo. So in the very least, it probably makes sense to have more time for the board to go through potential conditions, and it might be too late at this moment to do that anyway. So if there are some things that some board members want to see just for clarification for another meeting, that would also give an opportunity to sort of, for me to grab all the comments that you were making, like, for example, performance guarantee condition potentially, or other conditions you all talked about, to have it for you all to look at one other setting, and to get that cleaned up. So it certainly would help me, because I'm not sure I grabbed all of the things that you all were talking about in terms of potential conditions.
Question. Can a delay also give the applicant an opportunity? For example, in the case of the traffic study, which we're kind of feeling like leaves questions. I'm not going to say it's inadequate, but it leaves questions. To address those questions in advance of our final decision, as opposed to conditioning further traffic work, traffic study. You know what I'm saying? It seems like two different ways to address that same issue.
Well, I feel like there are two things. There could be that, I mean, there were some comments from public comment about the traffic analysis that was submitted and site distance, and so maybe some clarification of that. I don't want to get that muddled with traffic mitigation of the incremental impacts of this project with the existing conditions in the street, right? We can't require a traffic study to look at a three-way stop, for example, at Park Hill Road as part of a due diligence or application submission for this project, because that's really assuming mitigation from units that haven't even come online yet. right? So,
I understand, but there's a voice in the back of my head saying, but the applicant, if they want to expedite and they want to get as positive review as possible, could go ahead and address some of those things in their traffic study voluntarily. And we're not requiring it, but it might move us along a lot faster. So I'm just speaking to the applicant and saying,
so I guess that would be a question for the applicant, because also you'd want that determines how far out you want to make the continuation, right?
Yeah, okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Possible.
go ahead.
So appreciate your, your questions and concerns related to the traffic. What I haven't heard is any real specific questions related to the traffic. I hear anecdotal information about speed. I hear anecdotal information about concerns, and we respect that. But for us to properly provide you with the information that you would need, we would need more specific questions from some of the members of the board. And I want to remind the board that our traffic engineers found that there was no warrant for any of these things. If you want to, I'll give you an example. If I'm doing a Dunkin' Donuts, right? And somebody says, we want a light. We think we need a light, right? Well, the traffic engineers look at that. They look at the level of service of the surrounding intersections. They look at whether or not that is warranted. So you may find that your traffic engineer that might be hired through the mitigation funds decides that a speed table may be a great idea or may not be a great idea and may not be warranted for different reasons. It's the three-way stop sign may be the same thing. I think what your mitigation fund does is it puts the ball in the city's court, and that mitigation fund can be utilized, and then you have the flexibility of deciding what you want to do. So at least for us going away from tonight, if there will be a continuance tonight, we would hope that we could get more specific questions related to traffic, because I've heard kind of general concerns, but general concerns can't really be answered specifically. So to the extent that we could leave tonight with any sort of specific list to go to Bowman with, and or any information that you'd like to hear, we'd want to be able to provide that. Sorry if you can't hear me. We'd want to be able to provide that. And then also make sure that, we come up with an approach with the planning department that suits not only your concerns, but also provides you with as much flexibility as possible to work on, with that money or however it works with that funding.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with you. I haven't heard, I don't know what else you're going to come back with. I'm used to seeing site triangles at intersections, so you could add that to the plan. That would be helpful. I think I would like to see the new path layout that you're talking about, because I do have concerns about how it's going to pass by the detention basin.
And look at
the top of
also
the
the
hill there.
potential for connection at 10 and 11, I think, or in between 10 and 11.
I mean, I'm fine with it the way you're proposing it. I won't tell you what to do.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I think there's 39 units here. If they move or adjust the number of units to provide a real access from the north side of the project to the south side of the project across that area, to then hook up with the path, I think is a great idea.
So I think some board members will
Yeah.
look favorably on that. And so
yeah, even two accesses, is not out of possibility.
I'd also wonder, we talked about the, just having one access into this development, and whether a secondary access as an emergency access is necessary.
well, has there been discussions with emergency services,
We've
fire
done all
department?
we've done all the meetings to date with the department heads, and I believe this has all been sent out to the departments. I haven't heard that there's a concern over one single access.
Did that ever come up about the access being blocked during a
No,
crisis?
no.
So in the past, that's what we've done with clusters and large subdivisions, is we've provided both at Bear Hill and at,
Well, Bear Hill has one entrance, but that's not a subdivision.
No,
Emerson
it's
Way.
across- Yeah, Emerson Way.
has that, that's a subdivision, and because the, the length requirements for a cul-de-sac in a subdivision, that was required as emergency egress.
Right.
Yeah.
So Bear Hill has an emergency egress across down to the.
Oh,
JFK
right, to
parking lot.
JFK. Yep.
Yep, and it just makes sense that this many people could be marooned at some point in time. Whether it's a flood or not, again, I'm sorry that I'm not backing this up with data, it's anecdotal, but if something happens to that one entrance to the place and one exit, then there's no way for emergency vehicles to get in there. So whether that's possible or not in this layout and the topography, and I'm not sure, but I think that needs to be looked at because we've done it in the past.
So if I could speak to that, because that is a good question. You know, fire department standard operating procedure is that on their vehicles, they will have a chainsaw if they ever had a tree fall. The trees in the front and our access point will all essentially be cleared on either side of the roadway, so that nothing can fall into the roadway. Stormwater basins on either side actually require us, as you can imagine, to clear those areas, re-prepare those slopes. So those areas will be void of any sort of trees that could fall across, and we're not in the floodplain. We're not even in the zone X. We're not in an AE zone or anything like that. So, so as far as flooding, you know, it should not be a concern. It's not in the FEMA mapped floodplain. So I think from an access standpoint, there has been no question or concern to date. And I don't believe that there's a practical concern. If it was a steep slope, or if it was in a floodplain, or had a resource area running through it where there was either an intermittent or a perennial stream, or if we had trees that would fall and would extend across the roadway, but we don't have those.
Okay, well, I think we should probably make a motion to continue. That's what I'm hearing. Again, I'm not 100% sure what you're coming back with in terms of additional information.
I'll do my best.
I think maybe addressing McClure's comment about excessive speeds above the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, we can get something about that and what that does to the sight distance.
That would be great. Yep.
That would be good additional information traffic-wise. And just a sight triangle shown on the plan, just to make sure that the limits of tree clearing and everything are adequate, would be helpful for me personally. I would like to see just the proposed routing of the path, which you might already have on that plan, but have it submitted so we can look at it. And
Mental conditions, so we can wrap our heads around them.
I don't know, I do want to go to bed tonight. So.
I think I can put a list together for you all ahead of
That'd
the
be
next
great.
meeting.
Just in terms of the traffic, there was a comment in the file about a difference in traffic accident reports from the Bowman report and what somebody else discovered through the city police or some other database. So I'd like to see that verified.
Yeah, I believe it was 2 versus 4, and it's probably just
Might be the date range.
Probably just the range that they looked at.
One went back to 1996.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was like,
An oil truck.
The oil truck, that's it. And if that caught fire right at the entrance.
in 1996, like, they could have changed everything
It's a
30
good
years
thing it's a
ago.
sand Pit, all the oil just went right into the sand.
But
30
you know, we haven't closed public comment, so we can still take additional questions from the public if we continue. Does that sound appropriate? Okay. Any other discussion before we make a motion here?
So just the next planning date is in 2 weeks, the 26th, or then the following one would be March 12th.
Through the chair, I don't see any problem providing the necessary information by the next meeting.
With the traffic update? Okay.
Yes. You have a hearing at 7, but there's only one hearing.
That's this one. I won't be here.
Oh, right, yeah. But
Is that a
Janet
problem?
and Cam, no,
Yeah,
if
but-
they review the film, then they can film. Whatever,
Um,
hoarding.
So what do we think about for a time? Should we do, are we likely to have this hearing? Will this hearing at
Yeah.
7 o'clock
You
happen?
could do, I would do 7:15, and then if you don't start till 7:30 because it goes longer, that should be okay. It should be fairly straightforward. It's a small project.
Yeah.
Anyone like to entertain a motion?
I move that we move this project on Glendale Road till February, what did we say?
26.
26.
26th at 7:15.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Could I see a show of hands? All right, carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
We'll see you
Good night.
next meeting. Okay. Does anyone need a break, or are we ready to hop right into the next one? Good, okay. So our final hearing tonight is an 8:30 PM continuation from December 11th and January 22nd. Request for site plan by Lewis Builders for 3 new detached units, approximately 4,500 square feet, and site changes at 52 Woodbine Ave, Northampton, map ID 25A-149. And we'll invite the applicant up to the podium. I don't know if you have any media to share with us.
I do not.
Okay. And your mic is green. Here.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, great.
Should be all set.
I don't have anything pulled up.
Where's your audience?
Just one. That's it. Not as big as the other one.
I'll try to catch up.
Thank you for your guys' time. I'll be really, really quick so that way we can get out of here. We have a new site plan in front of you guys that shows our sewer and water line locations, as was asked. We also show topos on how we're controlling the water on site. And I think that's pretty much that you guys were looking for from the last meeting.
That sounds about right. I need to
I-
catch up.
See if I can screen share,
Thank you.
although this is,
Oh, error. Okay, so we have a new site plan dated January 21st. Is that
lots of bubbles.
the right one?
Let's see. Yeah. So, yeah, this shows the 2-inch water line and the sewer line coming this way, if you can see it under all the bubbles.
Yeah, I have no idea what all those little bubbles are on your drawing there because they're not on mine.
What date is this plan? I'm having a hard, utility, February 10th. I see it. I found it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you see the water coming in and how we're tapping into the connections for the city. And then we have our cleanouts on site. We have our shut-offs on site for each individual unit as well. And then we're controlling all the water on site through the topos on the 2 back units on around the back side and then around the rear side there on the south side. And the natural swale for the property all heads towards the bike trail anyways. Any other questions on that stuff?
So the proposed silt fence, you know, the dark line around, is that on the property line? or is-
Yes.
It is?
Mhm.
So I guess my confusion is these swales are directing the water to the plan west, but then it's running off your property, right? Onto the bike path?
It's contained onto the property. That's where the low portion is on the, on the. on the-
Oh, okay, that's kind of like a natural.
Correct, that's
depression.
where the natural swale is. Goes into it.
All right. Let's see. So we have water and sewer line, we have traffic mitigation, pedestrian access. So we'll have to waive the criteria for connecting the shared use path because
Right.
the state doesn't want it.
Hmm.
We have recommendations from the arborist. I'm not worried about the lighting plan.
There's also a recommendation from the Department of Public Works that ultimately there needs to be a design connection that to provide, they need to provide details of materials and water connections with their connection permit. So basically, they just, you know, a more generic condition that oh, I guess it's in the proposed conditions, sorry. Water and sewer lines shall be installed and connected in accordance with material and separation standards as specified. View would be appropriate to just close that loop.
Okay, that's in number 1 there.
Number 5.
Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, I see down here. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, so some conditions we have here in the staff report. Prior to any site work, the applicant must submit certification to the Office of Planning and Sustainability by the arborist that recommended tree protection has been installed and air spading has been performed as identified in the arborist report. 2, all exterior lighting shall meet zoning requirements. 3, no roof runoff or parking area runoff shall be directed to abutting parcels to the west. Flows and infiltration shall be consistent with existing directions and flows. 4, there shall be no dumpster on site. 5, water and sewer lines shall be installed and connected in accordance with materials and separation standards as specified by BPW. 6, prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the final unit, the applicant shall A, submit a one-time payment in lieu of traffic mitigation to the Office of Planning and Sustainability to meet the criteria in the site plan approval section for incremental increase in trip generation for the 3 additional units for a total of $3,000. B, all trees as shown on the plan shall be planted. So those are kind of the conditions we have in front of us. And then I'll open it up to the board to see if there are any other conditions that we might need besides those that I just listed. Did we resolve the privacy fence that needs to drop down?
Yeah, it's on the plan. We dropped it down 15 feet. I think it drops down at 4 feet.
Okay,
As you,
great.
it should be on there.
I had questions at our last hearing about the open space requirement, can we get access to that table again? I don't have it here with me. That I didn't think the calculations to the naked eye looked good, and I promised to go back and do the math.
Yeah, they're on the table. They're like below that.
There with the bubbles.
I'll screen share again.
Yeah, we actually increased the the open space because we took away the bike path access.
Uh-huh.
So we actually increased it.
And you're using some impervious material for the driveway or?
No, not anymore
no.
because we're controlling all the water on site.
Okay,
So that question goes away. It's just regular pavement.
okay, great.
Okay, any other concerns from the board? I'd entertain a motion at this time.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the, what's that? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing or the public comment. Did we close the public comment earlier?
I don't remember, but
Or anybody
if
on-
Carolyn says we didn't, then I'm sure we didn't.
I second.
Is there anybody online out there?
I didn't see any hands.
Okay, any discussion about closing the public hearing? We don't have anyone on Zoom frantically waving at us. Okay. Can we take a vote?
Wait, who's second?
Sam?
Aye.
All
Yeah, I
right,
thought.
motion
Lisa-
carries, motion carries.
So I'll make a motion to approve the site plan by Lewis Builders for 3 new detached units, plus or minus 4,500 square feet of building at 52 Woodbine Avenue. With the conditions we noted, and details.
Okay. Okay, motion by George and seconded by Stacy. Please get a show of hands. It's unanimous. Congratulations. Good
Thank
luck
you,
with your
guys.
project.
And thank
We'll
you.
get 'em.
And thank you for your time here.
Sorry for the wait.
I moved to close this meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Anyone want-
Any discussion?
No discussion.
No? All right, show of hands. All right, passes unanimously. Congratulations all.
Nine.